Universal Peace by Abdul Baha Abbas. I had a servant who was black. His name was Isfendiyar. If a perfect man could be found in the world, that man was Isfendiyar. He was the essence of love, radiant with sanctity and perfection, luminous with light. Whenever I think of Isfendiyar, I am moved to tears, although he passed away 50 years ago. He was the faithful servant of Baha'u'llah and was trusted with his secrets. For this reason, the Shah of Persia wanted him and inquired continually as to his whereabouts. Baha'u'llah was in prison, but the Shah commanded many persons to find Isfendiyar. Perhaps more than 100 officers were appointed to search for him. If they had succeeded in catching him, they would not have killed him at once. They would have cut his flesh into pieces to force him to tell the secrets of Baha'u'llah. But Isfendiyar, with the utmost dignity, used to walk in the streets and bazaars. One day he came to us. My mother, my sister, and myself lived in a house near a corner, because our enemies frequently injured us. We were intending to go to a place where they did not know us. I was a child at that time. At midnight, Isfendiyar came in. My mother said, "O Isfendiyar, there are 100 policemen seeking for you. If they catch you, they will not kill you at once, but will torture you with fire. They will cut off your fingers. They will cut off your ears. They will put out your eyes to force you to tell them the secrets of Baha'u'llah. Go away, do not stay here." He said, "I cannot go because I owe money in the street and in the stores. How can I go? They will say that the servant of Baha'u'llah has bought and consumed the goods and supplies of the storekeepers without paying for them. Unless I pay all these obligations, I cannot go. But if they take me, never mind. If they punish me, there is no harm in that. If they kill me, do not be grieved. But to go away is impossible. I must remain until I pay all I owe. Then I will go." For 1 month, Isfendiyar went about in the streets and bazaars. He had things to sell, and from his earnings, he gradually paid his creditors. In fact, they were not his debts, but the debts of the court, for all our properties have been confiscated. Everything we had was taken away from us. The only thing that remained were our debts. Isfendiyar paid them in full. Not a single penny remained unpaid. Then he came to us, said goodbye, and went away. Afterwards, Baha'u'llah was released from prison. He went to Baghdad, and Isfendiyar came there. He wanted to stay in the same home. Baha'u'llah, the Blessed Perfection, said to him, "When you fled away, there was a Persian minister who gave you shelter at a time when no one else could give you protection. Because he gave you shelter and protected you, you must be faithful to him. If he is satisfied to have you go, then come to us. But if he does not want you to go, do not leave him." His master said, "I do not want to be separated from Isfendiyar. Where can I find another like him, with such sincerity, such faithfulness, such character, such power? Where can I find one, O Isfendiyar? I am not willing that you should go, yet if you wish to go, let it be according to your own will. But because the Blessed Perfection has said, you must be faithful," Isfendiyar stayed with his master until he died. He was a point of light, although his color was black. Yet his character was luminous, his mind was luminous, his face was luminous. Truly he was a point of light. Then it is evident that excellence does not depend upon color. Character is the true criterion of humanity. Anyone who possesses a good character, who has faith in God and is firm, whose actions are good, whose speech is good, that one is accepted at the threshold of God, no matter what color he may be. In short, praise be to God. You are the servants of God. The love of Baha'u'llah is in your hearts. Your souls are rejoicing in the glad tidings of Baha'u'llah. My hope is that the white and the black will be united in perfect love and fellowship, with complete unity and brotherhood. Associate with each other, think of each other, and be like a rose garden. Anyone who goes into a rose garden will see various roses. white, pink, yellow, red, all growing together and replete with adornment. Each one accentuates the beauty of the other. Were all of one color, the garden would be monotonous to the eye. If they were all white or yellow or red, the garden will lack variety and attractiveness. But when the colors are varied, white, pink, yellow, red, there will be the greatest beauty. Therefore, I hope that you will be like a rose garden, although different in colors. Yet, praise be to God, you receive rays from the same sun, from one cloud. The rain is poured upon you. You are under the training of one gardener. And this gardener is kind to all. Therefore, you must manifest the utmost kindness towards each other, and you may rest assured that whenever you are united, the confirmations of the kingdom of Abha will reach you. The heavenly favors will descend, the bounties of God will be bestowed, the sun of reality will shine, the cloud of mercy will pour its showers, and the breeze of divine generosity will waft its fragrances upon you. I hope you will continue in unity and fellowship. How beautiful to see blacks and whites together. I hope, God willing, the day may come when I shall see the red men, the Indians with you also, Japanese and others. Then there will be white roses, yellow roses, red roses, and a very wonderful rose garden will appear in the world. The 10th of November, 1912, talk at 1901, 18th Street, Northwest, Washington, D.C. Notes by Joseph H. Hammond. I am greatly pleased with the friends in Washington and experience real happiness in meeting them. Likewise, I am pleased with the friends from Baltimore, for I have observed that their hearts are attracted to the love of Baha'u'llah. Their vision is extended toward the kingdom of Baha. Their spirits are rejoicing in the glad tidings of Abha. Verily, they are servants of the cause of God. All are engaged in service, and the perfection of their desire is to enter into the kingdom of Abha and draw near unto God. For that reason, I am very happy and well pleased with them. I pray for you all. May the favors of the blessed beauty, Baha'u'llah, encompass you, and may the lights of the sun of reality be your illumination. May you all become united and assured. May you serve the cause of God as one single united force. I give you the glad tidings that the confirmations of God will descend upon you. Be ye assured of this. Ye will become illumined. Ye will become conquerors. But after I leave, some people may arise in opposition, heaping persecutions upon you in their bitterness, and in the newspapers there may be articles published against the cause. Rest ye in the assurance of firmness. Be well poised and serene, remembering that this is only as the harmless twittering of sparrows, and that it will soon pass away. If such things do not happen, the fame of the cause will not become widespread, and the summons of God will not be heard. Consider the history of the past. Recall, for instance, the days of Christ and the events subsequent hereto. How many were the books written against him? What calumnies were attributed to him? How violent were the utterances in the temples against him? How many the accusations? What hatred and persecution? How they scoffed at him in derision and contempt. Consider the titles and epithets they bestowed upon his majesty. They even designated him Beelzebub, Satan. Well, the Lord, the Golden One. Beelzebul, Lord of Copulation. Baalzebub, Lord of the Flies. They said Beelzebub had been captured and crucified. They placed a crown of thorns upon Beelzebub's head and paraded him through the streets. This was the name the Jews bestowed upon Christ. It is written in the Gospel. Now there's also indication that perhaps these other Gospels that predate the finalizations I mean, as far as the compilation of the Bible is concerned, um, that maybe it was Judas who they took. And that the only reason why he was crucified was to match certain Mithraic myths. And by Mithraic, I don't just mean the Persian, Hindu influence of the Greco-Roman world. I mean something broader. This was the name the Jews bestowed upon Christ. It is written in the Gospel. Well, according to the Gospel, okay. There were many other forms of rivaling and persecution, spitting in his beautiful face, cursing and anathematizing, bowing backward toward him, saying, Peace be on thee, thou King of the Jews, peace be upon thee, thou destroyer of the temple, peace be upon thee, thou king and pretender, who would restore the temple in 3 days. The philosophers of the times, Romans and Greeks, wrote against Christ. Even the kings wrote books of abuse, calumny, and contempt. One of these kings was a Khazar. He was also a philosopher. In his book he says concerning the people of Christ, the most degraded of people are the Christians. Well, historically and biblically even, we can point out how the Christians weren't of the same religion as Jesus. And it's because of the Christian doctrines that so much slander was heaped upon, the composite character, Jesus. The most immoral of the people of this time are the Christians. In my time, it's just of the people without. They're more immoral than the other religious people, but not the people without a religion. And if they actually are churchy, they tend to be better, and then the religious Christians better than that. But they're better faiths. But I'm sure it was overstated then too. Jesus of Nazareth has led them away. Oh, particularly when it comes to modesty, even the Christians, okay, we want to bathe alone. Let me take a bath by myself. It's like, this dude wants to take a bath by himself. Yeah, I don't want to take a bath with 5 other dudes. What the hell's wrong with you? And, I literally mean hell. I don't mean, so, Jesus of Nazareth hath led them astray. O people, if you wish to know who Jesus is and what Christian means, go and ask his relatives. Go and ask the Jews who know him. See what a bad person he is, how degraded he is. There are many similar accounts, but remember that these statements did not affect the cause of Christianity. On the contrary, Christianity advanced daily in power and potency. Day by day, the majesty of Christianity grew in splendor and effulgence. Therefore, my purpose is to warn and strengthen you against accusations, criticisms, rivalings, and derision in the newspaper articles or other publications. Be not disturbed by them. They are the very confirmation of the cause, the very source of upbuilding to the movement. May God confirm the day when a score of ministers of the churches may arise with bared heads, cry at the top of their voices that the Baha'is are misguided. I would like to see that day, for that is the time when the cause of God will spread. Baha'u'llah has pronounced such as these are the couriers of the cause. They will proclaim from the pulpits that the Baha'is are fools, that they are a wicked and unrighteous people. Well, as we've seen their sense of worthiness and upholding people, as far as action, they are better behaved than the majority of the population. Be ye steadfast and unwavering in the cause of God. They will spread the message of Baha'u'llah, his honor. Mirza Abdul Fadl has written a treatise concerning the criticisms of a London preacher. Each one of you should have a copy. The Brilliant Proof was a booklet published under the direction of Abdul Baha when he was in America. This is Mirza Abul Fazl Kulpagan's book. Read, memorize, and reflect upon it. Then, when the accusations and criticisms are advanced by those unfavorable to the cause, you will be well armed. And the 15th of November, 1912. Talk at the home of Miss Juliet Thompson, West, 48 West 10th Street, New York. Notes by Hooper Harris. I have spoken in the various Christian churches and in the synagogues, and in no assemblage has there been a dissenting voice. All have listened, and all have conceded that the teachings of Baha'u'llah are superlative in character, acknowledging that they constitute the very essence or spirit of this new age, and that there is no better pathway to the attainment of its ideals. Not a single voice has been raised in objection. At most, there have been some who have refused to acknowledge the mission of Baha'u'llah, although even these have admitted that he was a great teacher, a most powerful soul, a great man. Some who could find no other pretext have said, these teachings are not new. They are old and familiar. We have heard them before. Therefore, I will speak to you upon the distinctive characteristics of the manifestation of Baha'u'llah and prove that from every standpoint his cause is distinguished from all others. It is distinguished by its didactic character and method of exposition, by its practical efforts and application to present world conditions, but especially distinguished from the standpoint of its spread and progress. When Baha'u'llah appeared in Persia, all the contemporaneous religious sects and systems rose against him. His enemies were kings. The enemies of Christ were the Jews, the Pharisees, but the enemies of Baha'u'llah were rulers who could command armies and bring hundreds of thousands of soldiers into the arena of operation. These kings represented some 50 million people, all of whom, under their influence and dominion, were opposed to Baha'u'llah, whom wanted to overthrow their government and try to recruit foreign armies to that effect. Therefore, in effect, Baha'u'llah, singly and alone, virtually withstood 50 million enemies. Yet, these great numbers, instead of being able to dominate him, could not withstand his wonderful personality and the power and influence of his heavenly cause. Although they were determined upon distinguishing the light in that most brilliant lantern, they were ultimately defeated and overthrown, and day by day his splendor became more radiant. They made every effort to lessen his greatness, but his prestige and renown grew in proportion to their endeavors to diminish it. Well, we see that the Turks and the Persians and stuff gave them a lot of chances and wanted to make sure to a huge degree that they weren't going too far with these. Surrounded by enemies who were seeking his life, he never sought to conceal himself, did nothing to protect himself. On the contrary, in his spiritual might and power, he was at all times visible before the faces of men, easy of access, serenely withstanding the multitudes who were opposing him. At last, his banner was upraised. If we study historical record and review the pages of Holy Writ, we will find that none of the prophets of the past ever spread his teachings or promulgated his cause from a prison, but Baha'u'llah upheld the banner of the cause of God while he was in a dungeon, addressing the kings of the earth from his prison cell, severely arraigning them for their oppression of their subjects and their misuse of power. The letter he sent to the Shah of Persia under such conditions may now be read by anyone. His epistles to the Sultan of Turkey, Napoleon III, Emperor of France, and to the other rulers of the world, including the President of the United States, are likewise current and available. The book containing these epistles to the kings was published in India about 30 years ago and is known as the Suratul Hikbal, Discourse of the Temple. Whatever is recorded in these epistles has happened. Some of the prophecy contained in them came to pass after 2 years. Others were fulfilled after 5, 10, and 20 years. There has been some editing of the Baha'i literature that has concealed some of the prophecies that did not come to pass, and even those were shown to be wrong in what they predicted. The most important prophecies relative to events transpiring in the Balkans are being fulfilled at the present time, though written long ago. For instance, in the epistle which Baha'u'llah addressed to the Sultan of Turkey, the war and the occurrences of the present day were foretold by him. These events were also prophesied in the tablet he addressed to the city of Constantinople, even to the details of happenings now being witnessed in that city. While addressing these powerful kings and rulers, he was a prisoner in a Turkish dungeon. So the Baha'is advocating prison sentences when their leaders were in prison, that's kind of interesting combination of things. But not really much in the way of prison reform being talked about. Is there anything? Well, this is just one book. We'll probably get to another at another year, right? Consider how marvelous it was for a prisoner under the eye and control of the Turks to reign so boldly and so severely the very king who was responsible for his imprisonment. What power this is! What greatness! Nowhere in history can the record of such a happening be found, in spite of the iron rule and absolute dominion of these kings. His function was to withstand them, and so constant and firm was he that he caused their banners to come down, and his own standard to be upraised. For today the flags of both the Persian and the Ottoman empires are trailing in the dust, whereas the ensign of Baha'u'llah is being held aloft in the world, both in the east and in the west. Consider what a mighty power this is, what a decisive argument. Although a prisoner in a fortress, he paid no heed to these kings, regarded not their power of life and death, but on the contrary addressed them in plain and fearless language, announcing explicitly that the time would come when their sovereignty would be brought low and his own dominion be established. He said in substance, ere long you will find yourselves in manifest loss. Your sovereignties will be laid waste, your empires will become a wilderness and a heap of ruins. Host from without will invade and subdue your lands. Lamentation and mourning will arise from your homes. There will be no throne, there will be no crown, there will be no palace, there will be no armies. Nay, rather, all these will be brought low. But the standard of the cause of God will be held aloft. Then you will see that the hosts and hosts will enter the cause of God, and that this mighty revelation will be spread throughout the world. Read the prophecies contained in the Suratul Haqqal. Suratul Haqqal? What does that mean? The degree of the something. And ponder carefully over them. This is one of the characteristics of Baha'u'llah's message and teachings. Can you find events and happenings of this kind in any other prophetic dispensation? If so, in what cycle have similar things taken place? Do you find such specific prophecies and explicit statements concerning the future and the holy books of the past? We will now compare the teachings of Baha'u'llah with the holy words which have descended in the former cycles. First among the great principles revealed by him is that of the investigation of reality. The meaning is that every individual member of humankind is exhorted and commanded to set aside superstitious beliefs, traditions, and blind imitations of ancestral forms and religion, and investigate reality for himself. Inasmuch as the fundamental reality is one, all religions and nations of the world will become one through investigation of reality. The announcement of this principle is not found in any of the sacred books of the past. A second characteristic principle of the teachings of Baha'u'llah is that which commands recognition of the oneness of the world of humanity. Addressing all mankind, he says, "Ye are all the leaves of one tree. There are no differences or distinctions of race among you in the sight of God. Nay, rather, all are the servants of God, and all are submerged in the ocean of his oneness. Not a single soul is bereft. On the contrary, all are recipients of the bounties of God. Every human creature has a portion of his bestowals and a share of the effulgence of his reality. God is kind to all, Mankind are his sheep, and he is their real shepherd. No other scriptures contain such breadth and universality of statement. No other teachings proclaim this unequivocal principle of the solidarity of humanity. As regard to any possible distinctions, the utmost that Baha'u'llah says that its conditions among men vary, gender neutral, form there. That some, for instance, are defective. Therefore, such souls must be educated in order that they may be brought to the degree of perfection. Some are sick and ailing. They must be treated and cared for until they are healed. Some are asleep. They need to be awakened. Some are immature as children. They should be helped to attain maturity. But all must be loved and cherished. The child must not be disliked simply because it is a child. Nay, rather, it should be patiently educated. The sick one must not be avoided nor slighted merely because he is ailing. Nay, rather, he must be regarded with sympathy and affection, and treated until he is healed. The soul that is asleep must not be looked upon with contempt, but awakened and led into the light. Baha'u'llah teaches that religion must be in conformity with science and reason. If belief and teaching are opposed to the analysis of reason and principles of science, they are not worthy of acceptance. This principle has not been revealed in any of the former books of divine teaching. So he's never read the Quran, and even the Bible includes stuff, although the Bible includes stuff that's against science, but Pauline Christianity, for example, opposes philosophy. Another fundamental announcement made by Baha'u'llah is that religion must be the source of unity and fellowship in the world. If it is productive of enmity, hatred, and bigotry, the absence of religion would be preferable. This is a new principle of revelation found only in the utterances of Baha'u'llah. Again, Baha'u'llah declares that all forms of prejudice among mankind must be abandoned, and that until existing prejudices are entirely removed, the world of humanity will not and cannot attain peace, prosperity, and composure. This principle cannot be found in any other sacred volume than the teachings of Baha'u'llah. Another teaching is that there shall be perfect equality between men and women. Why should man create a distinction which God does not recognize? In the kingdoms below man, sex exists, but the distinction between male and female is neither repressive nor restrictive. The mare, for instance, is as strong and often more speedy than the horse. Throughout the animal and vegetable kingdoms, there is perfect equality between the sexes. In the kingdom of mankind, this equality must likewise exist, and the one whose heart is purest, whose life and character are highest and nearest to the divine standard, is most worthy and excellent in the sight of God. This is the only true and real distinction, be that one man or woman. Just like the differences between the races, which are even less than the differences between male and female, that there's equality. It's not that these differences don't even out, or that the soul is not the more important thing, or spirit, which is soul and self, Anyways, that's a different area of talk. Baha'u'llah has announced the necessity for universal language, which shall serve as a means of international communication, and thus remove misunderstandings and difficulties. Its teaching is set forth in the Kitab-e-Aqdas, Most Holy Book, published 50 years ago. He has also proclaimed the principle that all mankind shall be educated and that no illiteracy be allowed to remain. Rumbly the tumbly. This practical remedy for the need of the world cannot be found in the text of any other sacred books. Does he not remember, or does he not know, or is he not telling the truth? Which one is it? He teaches that it is incumbent upon all mankind to become fitted for some useful trade, craft, or profession by which subsistence may be assured, and this efficiency is to be considered as an act of worship. The teachings of Baha'u'llah are boundless and without end in their far-reaching benefit to mankind. The point and purpose of our statement today is that they are new and that they are not found in any of the religious books of the past. This is to answer to the question, what has Baha'u'llah brought that we have not heard before? Therefore, it is conclusive and evident that the manifestation of God in this day is distinguished from all former appearances and revelations by His Majesty, His power, and the efficacy and application of His word. Well, they're not really listing anything that other than, my name, as uniqueness. So, again, correct me if I'm wrong with any of these things. All the prophets of God were scorned and persecuted. Consider Moses. The people called him a murderer. They said, "You killed a man and fled from punishment and retribution. Is it possible, after your former deeds, that you could become a prophet?" Many similar experiences are recorded concerning the holy, divine messengers. How bitter and severe was the persecution to which they were subjected. Consider how they endeavored to efface and belittle Christ. They thought they placed upon his head a crown of thorns and paraded him through the streets and bazaars in mockery, crying, "Peace be upon thee, thou King of the Jews." Some crying, in mockery crying, "Peace be upon thee, thou King of the Jews." Some would bow to him backwards, saying in scornful tones, "Thou King of the Jews," or "Lord of Lords, peace be upon thee." Still others would spit upon his blessed countenance. In brief, the persecutions which Christ suffered during the time of his manifestation are mentioned in the books of the old cycle, Jewish, Roman, or Greek. No praises were bestowed upon him. The only recognition and acceptance offered him was from his believers and followers. Peter, for instance, was one who praised him, and the other disciples spoke on his behalf. Numerous books were written against him. In the history of the Church, you will find record of the hatred and antagonism manifested by the Roman, Greek, and Egyptian philosophers, attributing calumnies and ascribing imperfections to him. But during the manifestation of Baha'u'llah, from the day of his appearance to the time of his departure, the people of all nations acknowledged his greatness, and even those who were his most bitter enemies have said of him, "This man was truly great, his influence was mighty and wonderful, his personage was glorious, his power was tremendous, his speech most eloquent, but alas, he was a misleader of the people." This was the essence of their praise, eulogy, and denial. It is evident that the authors of such statements, although his enemies, were profoundly impressed by his greatness and majesty. Some of his enemies have even written poems about him, which, though intended for satire and sarcastic allusion, have in reality been